Somebody bless. Jody, could you do the invocation for us?
Bow your heads, please. Gracious and Heavenly Father, we come to you today to ask for your guidance, your blessing on the Cherokee Nation. Please let us all make decisions with the best of our Cherokee people in mind. Amen.
Amen. All right. Need a roll call?
Dick Light.
Here.
Frankie Hargis.
Present.
Buell England.
Here.
Jack Baker.
Here.
Joe Bird.
Here.
Julian Coates. Here. Jody Fishinghawk.
Here.
Meredith Fraley. Here. Janelle Fulbright.
Here.
Don Barvin. Chuck Hoskin Jr.
Here.
Tina Glory Jordan.
Present.
Lee Keener. Curtis Snell.
Here.
David Thornton. David Walkingstick.
Here.
Kara Calhoun.
Honey.
We do have a quorum.
Thank you, and I ask for approval of minutes.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Ayes have it. We go to reports with Human Services, Marshall Landis.
I want to make sure everybody knows of the passing of Roby Noble, if you haven't heard that. And his services that we know of right now will be Wednesday, somewhere around 10 o'clock at Sequoia High School.
Thank you.
We also are having to clean out a storage unit, and we have about 20 flat screen TVs that we need to distribute out.
We'll take one.
I'm not taking orders right now. But what we would like from you guys is recommendations on how to get these out to your communities and your schools. And so, get your things heavy on.
Mr. Chairman, our community groups are probably the best place to start, but I think the treasurer's office also was developing some system to handle surplus items, so that's my first thought, but I'm sure everybody's got a good idea for you.
I'll get it.
Thank you, Mr.
I tried to get it. Okay, we are pleased to announce that we have received a grant from Citgo Corporation for our elderly and disabled clients. We are going to receive this grant in 3 phases, and we're working on this first process now. The payments are designated by Citgo on how much they get, and they want it to be a payment of $240. So we will probably distribute that until it's all gone, but we have to spend down the first drawdown, then we get the second, and then we get the third. Our child support this past week was co-host with the Osage Nation, a Region 6 travel roundtable meeting in Tulsa. And this is an event that allows tribes to discuss topics. I'm sorry.
What's the rules on the $240?
It has to go to heating.
The heating?
So,
Is this going to be in addition to your current list? Well, this will be in addition to what they're already receiving? Okay. So, yeah. So you're going to go to your light heat list. Do they have to make a new? Do they have to make a new application, or you'll just contact them?
we'll contact them.
Okay. Cool.
Because we already have that information. We have their account numbers.
Okay. Thank you.
So if you're, if you're getting a call, that's what it's talking about. That's all I have to report.
Jody?
Just a suggestion, you might want to check with Tony Davis and help. We have put somebody in there last weekend in the emergency room, and when they got the new emergency department, all their rooms, the people that come in, the patients come and just sit in that room, and it's a baby's room.
Where's it at?
At Hastings. I think it would make the time maybe go a little faster, it would keep the kids busier, it would get a little cranky for mom. If you put a flat screen in there.
That's a good idea. Now, I wanted to say, these don't have remotes with them. You'd have to get up one of those universal remotes.
There'd probably be some mamas down there that would bring a remote.
Bring their own remote.
I would have, trust me.
Janelle, did you have your hand up just a second?
Well, I did, but I,
Did you erase it?
it was
or what?
referring to the TVs because I had put in a request to Sharon Swepston and Diane Kelly to get the TV into the tag area reception for career services has the same place as Salazar. They said they would, and they were working on it, but I don't know if they already had a screen or not, but I didn't have first dibs on one TV. Help entertain all the people as they're waiting.
We didn't want to
You have
give
second.
them that. We wanted these to go to the communities, for the community members.
Okay, Chuck?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Marcia, and I know you probably know this, and I know Councilman Lay, he's the one that brought it to my attention, but the community up in Nowata feels that their nutrition center is not big enough, and I think we can attest that it's not big enough. And I know you can't do anything right here on the spot, but just keep in mind that it's bursting at the seams up there, and if we could look at plans at some point to expand. I know it was just built, but we're told that
I know there's talk to do that, you know, that's just not all it does.
Councilman's asked me about the capacity. The capacity, what is it? Less than 100 or?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, less than 100.
Maybe 50.
Yeah, it didn't take us long to realize.
But it's really great that the community and Council Fishing Hawks. Oh, we packed it in. But in any case, we're glad that there's such a demand, but we'll have to figure out a way to build the capacity. But we appreciate that it's on your radar screen.
I mean, that's good news, to me, that it's not big enough. Of course, that's a problem we have today.
And to answer Councilor Fishing Hawk's question, that was at South Coffeyville that we had to.
Karen?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I don't know where we were at, what next steps were on the Collinsville food distribution site, but I know we had talked about the community room and having something added to do that. And of course, we didn't know that it would be adequate. So is there an opportunity before we expand one that already has one, that we actually get one in Collinsville?
Well,
And I know you
I
were
have
going
a building meeting this week with Bruce and them to really find out where we are on that. But I think the slab's already built, isn't it? I mean, I don't know. That's what I'm trying to find out.
So I think there's a September 2013 completion date, which is being reported by Bruce's group committee in the committee documents. But we had visited several months ago now and asked for that consideration, and I can't remember where we were at with that on.
That's the last I heard when we were all up there talking about it.
I thought there was a commitment from your group, since you have the staff and the expertise, that you would get back with us on what that would take so that we could allocate funds, and I haven't got anything back. Have you? Okay. So if you could get back with maybe at the end of this week and let us know. Also, where's the Foyle Senior Nutrition site at now? What's the status of that? And I think I've heard there's been changes. And
I think I reported last time that they no longer want that, and we're in talks with the mayor to put it at the community center, and then since then, there's been another group that's showed interest, so we haven't made a decision on that.
would you, when there's a decision, would you report the address and all the changes to us by email? Then, has it been decided on the Rogers County, Tulsa County Elder Advocate? Has that person been hired? I couldn't find it in the report.
Should be advertised now.
Okay, so it's being re-advertised and reopened. And two more questions. How many elders in need have been served since the inception of the program? I know your report only showed 0 in January, that no additional folks were served under the elders in need. Was it the $200, $250?
1,200. I can't give you an exact, but I can.
Could you include on the report going forward, not only this
Year to
month, but
date.
the year to date, and or since inception, since that's a new program, will it get evaluated at budget time? Then the last question is, how will sequestration affect your programs?
That's going to be a question. Okay. We have two programs that this is going to affect so far. This is the elder nutrition programs, just what you were talking about. And we've already been informed that this will affect, so we're looking at ways we can do this. We're looking at reducing the number of days without it affecting service at least a little bit. We were just notified at the end of last week that this was going to be one of them.
And since this is a direct service that I think will immediately impact our constituents, rather than waiting for it to be in the written report next month, when you have a better idea, when you're sending us an update on email. And I found one more email where I don't find that I may have a follow-up, but we were able to add under Elders in Need program a Claremore site or Tulsa site or both, because we had asked, our district was completely left out of the emails sent. It was late February that I think it was sent out about the Elders in Need, but there wasn't any location in Rogers or Tulsa County. Here's the email that did me. I don't know that it's been responded to. We both asked for locations in our complete district, prior redistricting has been left out.
I'll respond to it here. I don't remember seeing
Thank
that,
you.
but it's. And the other program is in child welfare. And I've got a meeting this week with Linda Woodward, and I'll have a more perspective on that after our meeting on how this is going to she's indicated that she does, what we're going to look at on this question is any training, supplies, anything like that that we could limit instead of services. And she's indicated that that may be a possibility that she was. We're not sure. We'll do everything we can to keep it from being a layoff, but I don't. Yes, it'll just not be key positions.
Before Jody asked her question, Curtis said if you put a roof up on his community building, he'd build the rest of it. So I'm not sure exactly what that is going on down there.
Can I have that in writing, please?
Jody, go ahead.
So sequestration affected the elders and the
That's the senior nutrition side.
The elders and the kids, and that's what your department does. I hope everybody listens to that. That's cool.
Yeah, elders and kids, that's the most vulnerable ones, and that's the only thing that we haven't notified. Everything else seems to be okay. Of course, we don't know about in the hospital.
Thanks a lot. Appreciate it. Good report. Good report. That's Ron Quality.
I'm not Ron, but Ron asked if I could fill in for him because he had to go to a meeting over in personnel, human resources. He was hoping that he would, that it would wait until he got down here, but it wouldn't. So he apologizes for not being here, but I'd be more than happy to take any questions that you might have for Ron back.
Jody?
Harold, go back there, they were talking about building, submitting some policies or building some guidelines on our community buildings.
Okay.
What's required to get one in your area, how we work together, when to go raise your commitment. Just check on that for us, please.
I'll get with him and see if he can find out.
Thank you.
Tyler?
Also, on the line of community buildings, we received a list of what we own, what other organizations owned several months ago. And I was under the impression that we were going to develop policies concerning the care of the buildings, the insurance, we're gonna find out more about the makeups of the boards of people that control those buildings, and we haven't seen that either.
Okay.
If they would look into to that, we may take that up in just a few minutes on another matter, but I'm interested in seeing if we were to lease a building that we have put our money in to a nonprofit entity, what steps are being taken to make sure that that entity can provide for that building? And what steps are taken to assure that everyone in the community is allowed to use that building and not just a few people? So we're going to need a lot of work on those policies and rules pertaining to.
I'll get with Ron after we're done here, see
Okay.
what he knows and I guess.
And I would be glad, as the speaker, to develop a work group that might assist in making those policies, because the day has come when, if we're going to start leasing the buildings out, we need to start talking about what kind of rules we're going to have to, no, I meant from this,
I thought you'd give me a
No.
raise.
No,
You looked at me and said speaker. So I didn't.
you can have that $201 for the trouble it causes, but we need to really develop some policies, because these are some pricey buildings that we're talking about going out for $1 a year, but we're not able to see exactly the makeup of the board, the ability of the board to take care of the building. We're going to lose all say over the building. We don't know about the insurance issues yet. We need to have a plan if we're going to start down this road. And I guess we have to put that on Mr. Quall's plate.
I will let him know.
And I would ask for the chair to consider that we do like a work group to assist in possibly coming up with some policies and procedures pertaining to leasing out the buildings that are in our name. And what we're going to do about all this upkeep. Most of them can't even keep insurance on the buildings. So
And I know that we have-
it's going to become an issue.
I know that Ron and I have both visited about the insurance part of it before, because that is an issue.
And even if we get past that, there's the care and maintenance. Some of them are coming back to us, they can't pay the utilities on the buildings to keep them open. So we need to kind of see what their financial abilities are before we just jump off and say, well, here's your building, here's the keys. And next year they come back and say, well, now we need to pay the utilities, the insurance, the upkeep, bathroom's not working, we need to hire a plumber, refrigerator went out, can you buy us a new one? We need to know their abilities to, and we need to know who's on that board and what the rules are for the persons that are going to go on the board in the future.
And I know back before, whenever Housing Community Services was still combined, we started looking at that and started down that path, because that was, kind of concerning, I think, to everyone about, about that. And I don't know if anything's been done or how far they've gotten. I'm sure some other things have probably jumped up to the top and taken some precedent. But I think I'll get with Ron and let him know, at least, so he does know what's going on over that side and see if I can visit with him about what we discussed before, because he may not even be aware of that.
Thank you.
And we'll see if we can't figure something out.
Okay.
And I'll go ahead and tell you I'll develop a work group, and for those of you who would like to sit on that, email me and we'll select 3 or 4 and go from there. And let's see, who we have next? Kara, you're next.
Thank you. We're still on Ron's report, is that
Yes,
correct?
please, yeah.
So, thank you. I finally expressed to him 3 months later. I did get the COTA schedule, I think today in my inbox for at-large meetings, and I appreciate that. On the COTA grants, I forwarded it to both of you. I only got it by myself. So, on the COTA grants, I'm confused because there's people that are receiving money, it appears, that are not 501c3 And I thought that was a requirement that they had to have, either that tax exempt status, like as a church, maybe not a C3, but that line,
Nonprofit.
not of an actual nonprofit notification. Then the other thing that concerned me was they had a lot of great things going on with Boys and Girls Club, but I couldn't see that Chelsea Boys and Girls Club was listed. So if we could get that going with Chelsea, that would appreciate. I think they're one of our smaller clubs. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, and Frankie?
I just wanted to tell Ron, thank you to him and his staff. Velva, Sam Ed, David, Joyce, they're always real quick to respond to me when I have questions. And I just want to say thank you.
And we try to work together. If for some reason y'all send me something that's actually community services,
Yes.
I usually turn around and send it directly to them. Or if they get something that, is housing or whatever, so, don't feel like, oh, I don't know who this goes to. Send it to one of us and we'll make sure it gets to the right spot. But I'm sure that staff will appreciate that.
Thank you.
Lee?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Here, I had a question on transitional services and client services. Is that wrong?
As far as,
Well, the budget, I guess.
I guess let's go in and find out what you're talking about, then maybe I can figure out for sure. Because as far as like things like past rent, utility deposits, security deposits, things like that actually falls under Marcia. But there are some temporary assistance programs that fall under me. Are we talking about something along those lines?
Yeah, maybe they fall under you, but
Okay.
regarding the budget, so I'll wait till you're up next.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Dave?
Yes, I would like for you to find out something about the Fleet Springs Community Building, that they've applied for a building over there, and what's the process? Is it in? What's the situation with it?
Okay. And I
I know
don't have any
that,
idea, but I'll check.
Ron takes care of that. And I'll find out. Thank you.
Storm shelters at our apartment complexes, Bartlesville, Noah, and talked about that.
We've discussed it a little bit. We hadn't got very far into it. I know before under like Community Works through Community Services, they had looked at that on a couple of different community groups had asked for storm type of shelters. But there seemed to be an issue as far as the amount of money about design, specifically about design. Because what FEMA requires as far as it to be classified as a storm shelter is a little bit different than what some other groups would have. I know that we have worked on, actually a couple of towns and cities have worked before on applying for some FEMA grants. Halbert's one of the small ones that I can think of off the top of my head. Last year, or 2 years ago, they actually applied for, I think, a FEMA grant where the city built the storm shelter, and we actually, I think, leased them the land there on our apartment project. So it's actually a joint effort between between us and our apartment project and the city, because it serves both needs. So it's, I think, if you're looking at doing it just yourself, you're looking at about $30,000+. I don't remember exactly what their cost was, but I know that they applied for and got grants to do 2 separate ones. And we did work with them and did kind of tag team it, so to speak, where we actually, the city applied for the grant, built it, did everything else, and we worked with them to get it built on right there next to our apartment project. We'll continue to run down that path, but because of the amount of money and cost and stuff involved, we have it on our planning schedule, but our planning, we plan on some of our low rent modernization projects about 5 years out. So we have that on there for the future, but I don't know. I don't know for sure how quickly we can get to it at this point in time. But we always look for grants and other types of programs that might be out there that we can apply for and work towards to get special things like that. Because there's lots of projects on our low rent apartments. New roofs, new hot water tanks, heating air units, things of that nature are always stuff that, we try to do because the amount of money that we have to put towards our apartments is doesn't nearly meet what our need is. So we try to prioritize stuff and get to stuff the best we can. But sometimes it might take a couple of years before we can get to it.
And I wonder in future apartment complexes, can that be factored in?
Yeah.
Basement, I don't know, something.
Well, or even like maybe, basically every one of our apartment projects has a community area, a community room. It might be something where maybe we can, basically a dual use facility where it's actually planned, that particular structure is planned to kind of maybe be a safe room as well on, new types of projects.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. That was going to be my question, is whether we could do dual use. And then, just to clarify, is that $30,000 would, let's take Buffington Heights, for example, $30,000 would construct a shelter for Buffington, I mean, roughly, or?
Roughly, I don't know, I remember it coming up last year through, because I actually sat through community services, I sat on the Community Works work group, where a lot of different communities had applied for those types of funds. I know that that's what they were coming in at. I don't know how big those was or anything, but I think on the ones that we have checked on before, that's roughly what we're talking about. And I think that's what the ones that Hobart built were. I think they built two, and they were each about $30,000 in cost.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I wonder if we could, somebody in Ron's group could go out and find the closest shelter for these apartments. They're all kind of out there by themselves. I know Bonita and know what it is. Bartonville's a little closer to town.
We can definitely look at that and see, because like for instance, in Hulbert's the one that I think of, because even before, like at Hulbert, the Rural Electric Cooperative, the building there actually had a basement that was actually designated as a safe room. That could be used up until the time that they built these actual shelters that, everyone could, if you needed a place to go, you could go down to the electric co-op. And they had a basement area that was actually a tornado shelter. So I know that there's lots of communities who have different places like that, and we can certainly look and maybe try to locate where all of those are and get that information to our folks.
Do you know anything about the house in Vera that Will Chavez wrote the article on? The reason I ask, I never heard of it.
Is that not the one that's actually in Collinsville, or?
This family, I think, lives in Collinsville now, but the house is in Vera.
I think that's one that we have spoken about several times here before. Now, I could be wrong. Is that your house?
May I?
Is that a different one?
Are you speaking about
Well,
the self-help home?
the self-help home that's in the paper, it's not in the paper yet, but on the e-version of Phoenix,
It's already published.
Will Chavez has written an article.
Yeah.
There's been all kinds of problems.
That's one that we brought up, that we brought up here several times before.
And I think this thing was built in 2009 or 10, something like that.
It was a long time ago. I do know that they have worked towards, I think that they have I think they have kind of at least something in place to resolve the issue, where they actually have a plan to get the house on water. And that's one of the things that I know that we've spoken about a couple of times, about the need to make sure that we have water to sites and things like that. Specifically, that house is one of the main reasons I don't like to build roofs, and I'm pretty sure that's the one that we have at least spoken about, even back whenever David was here before.
Well, and that's, you know, of course, this predates me, predates Chief Becker, predates you, predates
It
Ron
does.
Qualls, and we're left to,
Fixed the problem, and I think we just about got the problem fixed.
okay, thank you, appreciate that. Any more questions? Thank you.
You're welcome. Now I guess we can proceed into the next one. I'm going to pass around. If you're ready, we can proceed on to
Yes, we
housing.
can.
I'm going to pass around a letter that HUD sent out, a memo from HUD on the Section 184 loan program. I want to make sure that each of you have this in case you happen to get calls, in case you happen to see reports, things like that, because this affects those individuals out there, those individual tribal members. I know that I've gotten some emails from some. This is HUD's response to that. And it actually says that the 184 loan program has been suspended. Of course, last week I was in DC and actually we had a meeting on Thursday afternoon with the Deputy Assistant Secretary, Mr. Boyd, on this issue. This was one of the things we brought up. He assures us that it is temporary. Of course, we don't know what HUD's definition of temporary is, but based on the memo, it looks like that perhaps when there is something in place that it may have something to do with the current continuing resolution that's in place, and maybe as soon as they get some type of fix worked out to cover the rest of the year, that might take care of the problem. Don't know. But I do want you to know about it because we have gotten several calls. If you all haven't gotten calls, I'm sure that you will, because it's a problem for everyone, and it affects those individual tribal members out there, because those are the folks who, basically this was a loan guarantee program. They didn't come through us to get the money, they went through outside lenders, and it was a program that directly affects them, so I did want you to know specifically about that in case you do get calls, questions, concerns about that. While we're on the subject of what's happened kind of on the national level, that's one of the issues. The other issue is NAHASA reauthorization. NAHASA has to be reauthorized every 5 years. The current reauthorization on NAHASA runs out October 1st of this year. Everyone is working on that issue. We have had some good conversations with congressional leaders and their staff on this issue. Of course, there's some other things on the national level that's kind of on the front burner now with sequestration and budget and things of that nature. But we are working on working to at least remind them that it's out there, let them know that it affects us and every other tribe across the country. That it's not a whole lot of money in the big picture, but it is basically the only housing money that we get. And that's one of those only programs that we can get for housing needs specifically for our Indian families. So that's something that I wanted to kind of let you know about, at least kind of bring that to the front of your mind, let you know that that is one of those things that is coming up. This year is NAHASA reauthorization. One of the other things that comes up, that was scheduled to come up this year, we don't know if how quickly it's going to come up now with sequestration and everything else happening on the national level, and that is negotiated rulemaking, it's formula negotiated rulemaking on the NAHASA formula. The money, the way that the money is divided out among all the tribes across the country, or for NAHASA, is based on a complicated formula, and that the negotiated rulemaking for that formula was set to take place this year. We don't know how early that's going to take place now. It may be much later in the year because of the budget cuts that HUD's experiencing because of sequestration and some of the other things. So we don't know exactly when that's going to take place, but that's one of the other things that we're looking at and following very closely on the national level. And I think those are the big issues that I wanted to kind of bring up, let you all know about. Another thing that I wanted to let you know about also is Amran notified us on the Community Shield program that they were raising premiums slightly. The premiums were raised approximately, on average, about $10 per month. But folks are actually getting a lot better coverage. We worked real closely with Amran, tried to work with them to make this as smooth as possible, but just like every other homeowner's insurance out there, they did experience some increases. Those increases, I think, were manageable for the most part. And one of the good things about the Community Shield program now is it covers 3 areas that didn't used to be covered on the Community Shield policy. That is water line breaks, vandalism, and theft. I think those are 3 areas that wasn't covered under the old policy, but it's now covered under the new policy. So that's a little bit better deal for our families as they get some additional coverage that they didn't have before. So those are some of the things that I wanted to bring up that kind of affects. Those are several things that happened this past month between suspension of the 184 loan program, Community Shield policies increasing, and some other things. So I'll be happy to answer any questions you have. I know y'all are running a little bit late.
Joe, I had you first.
Tom, you probably remember we did the first 184 loan there back in your time when you were council for housing authority. How many are we averaging on those 184?
Well, we don't do those. Now, I can tell you that.
But the tribe helps with those, they assist.
Yeah, now Anna's group, they probably assist with some.
If we were to go back
If
4
you
or
was
5
to,
years, probably we average.
if you was to go to HUD and find out how many Cherokees have gotten assistance on the 184 program, I think you'd find out that more Cherokees have received assistance than any other. Would that be a fair statement? That Cherokees have received more assistance.
On the next report, would you bring about how many we average per year? Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
And that was just a question I was gonna bring up, if we could maybe figure out how many members are gonna be impacted by it, and how many were allowed to move over to the more traditional lending program. I know the interest rate is going to be higher though.
Yes, it is. Not only is the interest rate going to be higher, one of the good things about the 184 loan program that most of our families will experience on another type of program, whether it's an FHA program or something else, is the 184 loan program is about one of those only programs out there that doesn't require PMI. That'll have an impact on the amount of money that folks can borrow, the amount of money that they have to pay out a month. The interest rates will be a little bit higher over on the other types of traditional mortgages. It's going to have a big impact, and we are following that really closely, and we are staying on top of it, and we're doing everything we can to try to get them to at least make the suspension as temporarily as possible.
Well, I did talk to one individual that was right at the door on this 184 loan, had found the home he wanted to purchase, had been pre-qualified. Then they told him, no, we can't do 184. It was his broker that told him that. He's going to have to go 1.5% higher. He's going to have to pay the PMI, which is probably going to add an additional $40, $50 a month. There's going to be a big difference in that 1.5% interest and the
Plus the amount of down payment they're having to come up with or financing.
down payment, I think, doubled on that particular loan. So we need to get this program back in place if we can. It was taking care of our mid-income folks that we don't really currently provide a lot of housing services to, other than through maybe a more, and maybe we need to bring Anna up just to kind of talk on this. But Anna, you were doing some of the mortgage assistance money was going through, was helping with the 184 loans, wasn't it?
Some of our MAC clients are 184 loan clients as well. And
The 15,000 is not going to go as far now.
No, no, it really doesn't. And the biggest thing is the PMI. That's on a $100,000 loan with someone with a 640 credit score. That's about $100 a month.
Yeah, see, this one had a better credit score, but a lot of those are riskier loans, aren't they? So they increase with the risk, the amount that they have to put into that other money, and it's for 5 years, isn't it? The PMI is for a 5-year.
Until they reach 20% equity in their home.
And then the other thing to consider too is that the 184 loan program also helped out these folks who they might have lived in the Cherokee Nation but was looking for a house in one of those counties that are only partially covered. All of Oklahoma was covered, but there was also several other regions of the United States that were covered, but all of Oklahoma was covered under the 184 loan program. So it's going to have an impact on Cherokees everywhere.
It is.
Not just here.
And it's become much more popular. In talking with HUD it took them almost 10 years to reach $1 billion. In HUD 184, they did $1 billion last year alone. And so the program is really increasing in popularity, and Cherokees are the highest percentage of those loans.
And just
So is it going to do any good for us to extend that to Washington without the program being in place, or should that be, I know it's on the agenda. Okay, because we got to get the program back first.
Yeah, and that's one of the reasons why I wanted to bring it up to you all. If any of y'all have any reason to, or if y'all are looking at being in DC in the next, coming weeks or months or whatever, Anna, myself, any one of us would probably sit down and visit with you on some of the issues so y'all can kind of make your voice known too. But we are working on it from several different angles, and we're not the only tribe out there working on it. The Chickasaws are very aware of it because the Chickasaws have Bank 2 in Oklahoma City, and Bank 2, they're probably one of the largest 184 lenders in the United States. I mean, they probably do more 184 loans than anyone else out there. So everyone is aware of it. It's not just an issue that just affects Cherokees. It affects all of us, but it does have a big impact on us, both Cherokees here at home and outside.
Possibly we do need to send a contingency of folks to Washington to lobby for this, because this was the one program across the board in Indian country that benefited Native Americans. And for them to drop it will be it's huge. This is a huge thing to lose.
So I wanted each of you to have what we got from HUD. It's not real informative, but it's what we got. It's what they sent out. We were actually notified of this we started hearing rumblings about it on, I think last Tuesday, what was that, NCAI. The good thing is, if there's any good thing about it, is probably the best thing is, it happened last week whenever virtually every tribe, not every, almost, a big portion of the tribes were represented in DC at NCAI, rather than this week or some other time. So, I mean, there was, tribes from here to all across the country that this stood to affect, that they were calling up their congressional delegation. They were visiting with, the congressmen and senators who came through NCAI to speak. I think everyone was lined up to get a word and let them know how big an impact this was. So if there's any good thing about it, it happened last week instead of this week. That's good, but at least I think it helps us out by at least getting the word out there.
Okay. Lee?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And Gary, this may be a Marshall question, but the Hall defines the resident services. And so
That is a Marshall question, I believe.
So traditional housing and or services, or rather client services. I noticed on the client services, 2/3 of the budget is spent, and then client services 80%. So, and Gary answered a lot of questions for me with his briefing. And will that be enough for you to last the rest of the year?
That's a lot.
Well, you're asking for the increase,
Yeah.
so will that be enough, I think, or what do we need to wait on something more now? Because of the cutbacks?
The good thing, if there is a good thing, just to let you know a little bit about the way we use Nahasta, not just us, but about every tribe out there uses Nahasta funds, is right now we started using, this fiscal year, we started using 2012 funds. The good thing about that is if we were using current year funds, we would probably have to close the doors and send a lot of people home because of some of the budget issues. But now the good thing is with the way the Indian Housing Plan works, if there's a need to, we can always reshuffle some things around to the Indian Housing Plan to cover some extra funds. And one of the things that we usually do is look at that. And Ron and I are actually scheduled to look at that here in the coming months to kind of see if we're making the best use of all of the Nahasta funds that we're using, or if there's somewhere where we
What I would do is look at what the increase is each year. That's what we base that.
Oh, so it's not actual, not reality right now?
Well, it is when you see a steady increase in need because, I mean, times are hard out there. We're seeing
Right.
clients we've never seen before.
And that's what was alarming to me, 2/3 and 80% spent already, so
Yeah.
just wanted to, as long as you're monitoring that, that's good.
I think Marcia and her group are staying on top of it. And, you know, the good thing too is we have, the Nahasta programs is one of those programs where we do recapture some program income for investments and different things throughout the year.
Well, I'll be knocking on this door.
That we can, rather than take current grant fund money, we could ask for, we'll have to come back and reallocate that through the Indian Housing Plan at some point and recognize those, that program income, and that might be something.
Thank you.
That initially about April was about the time if I'm right, think about April's about the time we bring the program income. But I could be wrong, it may be about.
A month or two, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, I've got Stick, Jody, and Julia, if you guys could, I think they'll be it here. Welcome, Stick.
I was watching Channel 2 News last night. The Section 184 loans had a demographics of how many applicants were approved in the United States. And Oklahoma had 6,700 applicants. And
I meant to bring you all a copy of that map.
yeah, in the bordering, there's maybe two or four applicants in these different states.
One of the things you need to keep in
Oklahoma
mind
just stood out.
is because all of Oklahoma is covered on the 184 loan program. In a lot of those other states, you might only have one or two counties or areas that are covered or is eligible for assistance on the 184 loan program, because it's HUD who makes those determinations. Even if you look at Texas and Arkansas, Kansas, there's only a small spots in those areas that are actually eligible. So that's one of the reasons too why the 184 loan program has a big impact on us here in Oklahoma, is because all of Oklahoma is covered and it affects us all.
Thanks, Gary.
Thank you. Jody and then Julia.
Oh, I was going to say that our lobbyist group did a good job at Todd one night. I know we went and met Senator Tester from Montana and talked to him about the 184.
Yeah.
Todd is coming up there next month. We'd be more than happy to meet with him again.
And I've been in contact with Mike, and I have been visiting on.
We got immediate response on that issue with Senator Tester, and then the following day with several congressmen and other senators directly. So it was very, as Gary said initially, it was very fortunate that happened. We were there. We were able to respond with Cornerstone, and they did an excellent job.
And Julia.
I just wanted to say, I mean, you're absolute about the 184 loans. You're right that in Texas, I think there were only 2 counties that had it. I don't know about Arkansas. I wasn't aware there were any that had it.
There might not be.
we passed a resolution 4 years ago, 5 years ago, something like that, to extend it throughout all of those states, since we have, I mean, over 2,000 people in Texas and many thousands in Arkansas as well. And HUD never did it. So there's more to it. I mean, we want to lobby for a restoration. Along with that, we'd probably also want to lobby that the resolutions and requests that we've made in years past actually be implemented by them as well, because that's not the end of it. Apparently, HUD has their own mind about things. And
I think you're right. And actually, Anna and I just visited about that this morning because I wasn't aware of that issue. And we had actually spoken about it, and I actually think if we get this part taken care of, maybe we can look at a couple of other things, because I don't know if, I asked her, you know, if maybe like Speedhall, Southern Plains Indian Housing Association, which we have tribes in Speedhall that are in Kansas and in Texas and different places. Maybe we need to work through that group and lobby that and actually do something to look at.
We have this request from DC, which we'll withdraw today, you know, until we know what's going to happen here. But I also got one 10 days, 2 weeks ago from Georgia, and from Cherokee Nation citizens who are there. And we don't have many households in Georgia, but I think we have about 400, and it's probably at least as many as we have in DC, probably even more. And you know, so there are other places that.
Oh, absolutely. And the 184 loan program, I mean, if there is one good thing that HUD has done over the years that helps out just about every I mean, at least here, if we look at it, you know, through the area we covered here in the 14 counties, it doesn't matter if you can walk in the door here and qualify for one of our, you know, income eligible programs or not. That's one program that just about anyone. I mean, you know,
if your lending institution is involved in
yeah,
it, which is the other thing I discovered personally.
It is, and that's the other thing.
Anyway.
But it overall is one of the best programs out there for Indian country, as far as my opinion.
I want to also, I've got two other quick questions. I know we're running long, but speaking about Nahasda, I know the Cherokee Promise Scholars program, which is in its second year now, I believe, and that in the first semester, I think we had about 7 students who were not funded, and I wonder if you have any, and you may not, because I know this is probably on the education side, but I was wondering just if you might have any information about that.
I'll be happy to check. I don't have any information. I do know that there is a line item on Nahasda that actually goes over there that education administers.
Right.
But I sure don't, but I'll check.
Okay. And then my last question was about the homes. I think the report, I was told by someone that is 10 homes are stated, not rather than the 15 that have been reported previously. It's the second-hand information, because again, I don't.
I'll have to go back and look at the report, but I think
Page 19.
yeah, it doesn't look like that.
Figure out how we went backwards.
Yeah, it wasn't.
Yeah.
I'll correct. I'll find out what the issue is with that and send the correction to you, because that is not right. I believe that 15, and I believe that there's several other ones started, but I didn't get those updated numbers because there was a couple of things that was a little bit more pressing I wanted to bring to
Point
you.
of information, Mr. Chairman, can we make sure that's also sent to everyone and also amended on the website and the Registar so it's proper and correct? Just in our housekeeping.
And I'll be sure to put it across the top amended. I'll do it while
That's all from me, Mr. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you, Gary. Good report. Michael Lynn.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. In the interest of time, I'll make my report brief. We did hold a final inspection on Cedar Crest Bridge in Mays County on February 12th, and there's a few outstanding items that we're needing the contractor to complete. One of them is the contractor has little control over, but it's vegetation. They have started out there, spread seed. We are waiting for some of that seed to get established before we make final payment. But overall, the project is ready to final out and make final payment on. Once we do make the final payment to the contractor, that will expend all of the RO or stimulus dollars that we had within the department. So we're proud to see the last RO dollars being spent. Barber Road, we held a final on that on February 20th here in Cherokee County, and there's some minor fence profiling issues that need to be done, and some silt and erosion control issues, items need to be cleaned up by the contractor, and we'll be issuing final payment on that project shortly. And with that, I would just open it up to any questions.
Should we fix the fence at Barber Cemetery yet?
I got an update on that from the county. Last week they had called and we were buying material to construct that pipe rail. I haven't been by there this week, but he had anticipated just really soon. We're going to get the material last week from over in Muskogee, I believe, and hopefully get started pretty quick. I think they've been waiting on just some better weather.
There's not going to be any way, or maybe I know we can't do it on this project, but that drop-off is going to be a harsh thing for the folks that go up there for funerals and Memorial Day. I mean, you've got kind of a narrow drive in there. Then once you get in there, you know, you've taken up quite a bit of the parking area of the cemetery for the new road. And then you've got those open down at the bottom of the hill. If the cars aren't careful, they're going to drive off into that open drainage area.
Ditch?
Yeah, yeah, the ditch on both sides of the road. Is there any way that we could figure out how to design that where we enclose that drainage area, at least there in front of the cemetery? And I'm talking about David's area, Barber Cemetery.
Yeah.
But we need to do something because we're going to have problems out there.
The pipe rail that we're going to install, or the county is going to install, should eliminate or alleviate any issues with cars dropping off the edge into the
Are they
ditch.
going to do the pipe rail back at once you come into the little driveway, is there going to be pipe right there where the drainage area is? I thought the pipe fence was going up in front of the cemetery.
It's going between the cemetery and the road, yes.
So you're going to do a pipe railing back where the drainage area is, where the drop-off is?
Yes, ma'am. Right along the top of the drop-off, down where it drops down
Do you
into
think
the
that's
ditch.
going to stop the car?
It should. They're supposed to be using 4-inch pipe.
So it's just going to cause damage to the car?
Stop the car. I can't guarantee any damage or not.
Would it not be better, what is the cost of closing the drainage there in front of the cemetery? Can you look into that?
We'd have to look into it. It may not even be what we call hydraulically feasible to do it. I mean, there could be so much water coming through there, it may not be. I think what you're asking is if we can put a long pipe through that area and fill that slope in. And I don't know, water-wise, if that's even possible, but we can look at it.
See, the problem was the cemetery was not included in how you all got the easement. The county gave the easement.
Correct. It's in the county's name.
And the cemetery folks didn't have a say in it. And everybody that has family in that cemetery, nobody got a say in it except and of course the county signed easements and just gave the land to anywhere where the county could sign. They just gave land, and there's nothing wrong with that. They were getting a big benefit because their road was being improved, but now it's left the people with a problem. And I just think because it's our project that we have some duty to try to mitigate that problem that we're leaving them with. Just putting a pipe fence at the bottom of the hill to stop the car as it rolls down into the road, it just seems to me like we need to offer them something a little bit better than that.
The pipe fence, the pipe rail will go up to the top of the slope. They won't be rolling down the slope at all.
Where's the parking going to be in?
Between the pipe rail and the chain link fence that's already in place.
You're not going to be able to get much cars in there.
When we met with that committee out there, they seemed to be very pleased with what we
Well,
had.
but I think the committee just wants to get along.
Maybe.
The people are asking questions now, because they kind of see what's happening, and they're concerned. And again, that's, I'm getting over in Mr. Walkenstick's area, but we need to address it.
Okay. I'll look into the ditch issue you're referring to.
I mean, you know, it's like that. And then we took half their parking. If they have a funeral with more than 10 cars, we're in trouble. I guess we're gonna park them on the road.
It's fine, I mean, it could be done, yeah. Off the road as much as they could.
And then we have to try to get the people up the hill to the funeral. And most, if not, many of them are elderly. It's just not a good situation, Michael. We need to do something a little better than that. They're looking for us to speak up for them because they don't feel like they can speak up about it. We need to do something a little better for them than what we did out there.
I'd like to meet with somebody out there to get an idea, because I'll look into filling in, but I think we filled in that ditch with a pipe. It's still just gonna be as steep as it is now. You'll just have cover over it.
Well, it would at least get them off the road, and it would give them some additional parking area that they don't have right now. I just think we need to go back and take a look at it. And I wish I'd been out there that day, because I know who you were talking to, and I know that they want to get along, they don't want to have problems. But there's a whole lot of folks out there in the community who started asking a lot of questions. Is this what we get? Is this the way it's going to be left? And I said, well, you're going to get a railing, and I didn't know you were going to put the railing at the bottom of the hill. I knew you were going to put it up at the top where that open area was.
It will be at the top. I don't understand what you mean by the bottom. I mean,
Well, there's the cemetery where there's a chain link fence,
yes.
and I knew you were going to go to, I guess it would be the west, and you were going to fill in the remaining open gap of that fence with a railing.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and then there's a open grassy area that's kind of sloped like this, okay? And you've taken half of that for the roadway.
The back slope of the ditch, yes.
Right, and you've left an open ditch across there.
Correct.
Now, the question is, where do the people park for a funeral? And what happens if somebody's not got good brakes, or let's say, okay, or even more, a lot of elderly people, let's park them down on the road. How do we push them up the hill to attend the funeral? We've left them in a bad situation there. It never was a good situation, but it's even worse now.
Yeah, it was not. Yeah, we'll look into it.
And I know it can't be done with the group that's doing the work out there because it wasn't part of the agreement. But I think that now we need to step up and see what we can do to help alleviate some of that problem. And do you, Mr. Walkenstick, do you know the problem we've got there? Have you been?
I haven't seen it. I know you guys talked about it in your committees that we set up in Dry Creek about the issue, but.
And this may be an ideal issue that we can address with some access funds, if we could close that ditch.
Yeah.
There's an awful lot of people that have family down there. I have family down there. And I drive out there just about every other month to check the graves, and you better have a good parking brake, or you'll be sitting down on the new road. And what I thought I heard you say was you were going to put railing up there on the west end, but you were going to put railing down before you got to the ditch.
At the top of the back slope before it goes down into the ditch is where it's going to be placed.
Well, it's just that little gap then in the fence.
No, there's probably 250, 300 foot of pipe rail they're going to install.
Are they going to replace all of the chain link fence?
No, it's not going in place of the chain link.
It's just going to fill the gaps where there is no fence.
No, I know, it's not even going to do that.
Yeah, I think we need to go out there and look at it.
I do too.
Because if you're going to put the railing back up down by the road, you're going to cut off even more parking. I mean, it will be a 10-car funeral from now on.
go deep and dry creek.
Yeah. I think we need to talk about it a little more offline.
We can do that. Certainly.
Okay. Any more questions? Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Anna?
Risk of life coming up here. You have a copy of my report. I do just want to say that one good piece of news on the personal finance front is that they're changing credit scoring models from Vantage Credit is changing to where when someone has a collection item that is paid off, it'll no longer count against them. Now, FICO is the most popular credit score, but with this Vantage score changing, chances are FICO will go along with it too. So that's actually going to help a lot of our citizens improve their credit score. And so that was just one little piece of good news that I had. And other than that, I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Okay.
Thank you. I didn't quite, and maybe I missed on your report, is there any impact on sequestration that we should anticipate with the programs? Because you do such a great job, and I hate to have things put back in. Even if 184, which you really don't administer.
Right. Not at this point, no, there is.
Was there any findings on why we were seeing a higher default rate on those 184s with Cherokee citizens?
No, not as of yet. We haven't been able to start making contact with the people yet, but then once we do, I'll make sure.
And I really appreciate you following up on that. Thank you again. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Anna. Good report. Okay, old business, none pending, new business. Tina, could you take that one, or you want me?
Yes, this is, number one is a resolution authorizing an increased set aside of tribal transportation program funding for transit projects. And this has actually been a great issue that's been brought to the forefront by our chairperson, Dick Lay, and I will put that in the form of a motion.
Second.
Have a motion and second, and Chuck?
Briefly, Mr. Chairman, I appreciate your leadership on this. I just wonder if I could piggyback as a co-sponsor, or you taking the lead on this, but I know it's real important up in our area that we get this done. So with that objection, I'd like to join.
Yes, you can, and if this passes, I've been told it needs to go to full council.
Do we need to put that in the motion, or just amend the agenda tonight?
We have to amend the agenda tonight anyway.
Any questions? Yes, sir.
Mr. Chair, on the last paragraph, it says that it's set aside for transit projects to an amount not to exceed 5%. But 5% of what?
Mr. Chairman,
Like set aside?
The 5% that is the percentage identified in the resolution that's preceding that Senate 7409 authorizes us to use 1% currently out of our Indian Reservation Roads program construction dollars, which is an authorized expense for transit services. So what this resolution here is doing is modify or amending that 7409 to an amount not to exceed 5%. Currently, like I said, we have 1%. Right now, what we're proposing is to increase that to 2%. However, this resolution gives us the authority to not to exceed 5% in the future, if needs so in the future.
Something to add?
Yes, our Indian Reservation Roads program is now called Tribal Transportation Program, and that is indicated in that paragraph. Just so that I wanted to make that information known to council members, because it's been IRR for so long that it's kind of hard to get away from that. And so we have a different program name under statute now, so it's kind of misleading as to where funds might come from.
It's still hard for me to remember too.
And will your office administer where the increases will be? You'll determine that? It won't be political?
Through administration, that's correct, yes. We'll take directive from administration.
So it will be political. Okay, thank you.
Ms. Watts, did you raise your hand?
Yes,
Okay.
So how will this, if we make this change, how will it impact other parts of the programs? What are we giving up to go from 1% to 5%?
I mean, it is taking construction dollars out of our construction, our TTP, Travel Transportation Program, construction dollars, and reducing that to shift those dollars over to transit services.
Okay, so how will it impact then our master plan for construction on our railroads and stuff? What projects will have to be delayed, I assume?
I don't foresee any delay in projects, or really even any impact financially to any projects at all.
Correct then, thank you.
Michael, on the old resolution, it had certain counties. Should we add the counties that weren't added before? No. Okay, thank you. Any more questions?
I'd just like to be added as a sponsor
Yeah.
as well, thank you.
Anyone else would like to be added as a sponsor? Okay, this is a resolution, is that right? Okay, we'll do a voice vote. All in favor of the resolution, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, ayes have it. And looks like number 2. Jack?
Yes. In light of the lack of funding for 184, we'll withdraw that at this time.
Any announcements?
I have an announcement, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, we have a visitor from our neck of the woods who also happens to be a tarot contractor. His name's Tim Keaton. So I'd just like to hear Tim stand up. He's a roofing contractor. Unfortunately, he's not here to fix our roof. I wish he was. Maybe we can talk to him. But Tim, we're glad you're here. Thank you.
Good to see you. Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, entertain a motion for adjournment.
Adjourn.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.